so well.
What's it called?
Grand Lash. It's Grande.
Okay, I'll look at that.
They're like in a gold tube.
All right, I'm gonna go through and get a recording. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a quick demo on how to fill in your child's brows. That will be something that will work for their face shape and take the guess out of it for you. Is you always want to start your eyebrows where their tear duct and the corner of their nostril will be, and I'm actually gonna go through with my angle brush, which is my preferred tool for this, and actually go through and stamp it on so that you're able to see and almost basically connect the dots. So you want the highest part of their arch to be where their nostril and their iris would be. Go through and stamp that on there, and you want the brows to not go past where the corner of their nostril and the corner of their eye would be. So we're gonna stamp that on. So now all we're gonna do is go through and connect the dots with the angle brush. We're gonna start on the bottom of the eyebrow, and in short little strokes, just go through and create a line to connect point A to point B, and then connect point B to point C. And so this just gives you a little bit of strength. So if your child has an incredibly full or bushy brow, this might be a step that you should skip. If your child has a very soft, natural, or blonde eyebrow, you might need to go through and add a little bit of color just so that it shows up on, like basically while they're dancing and on film and on camera. So what we're gonna go through now is that we've created this nice heavy line, is we're gonna go through with the angle brush and we're just gonna brush upward. So this is gonna help fill in between each one of those hairs, but also soften and diffuse that line that you create on the bottom so it's not super heavy. The shadow that I'm using for hers, it's called Omega by MAC, and it's just like a soft taupey color, so I don't have to worry about her eyebrows getting too red. So as you can see, she has a little bit of a stronger eyebrow now. Then I like to go through and use a primer. So this one is just a paint pot. It's just a cream-based eyeshadow with a 15-hour wear time. It gives something for the shadows that I'm then going to apply afterwards to stick to, and I don't have to worry about anything moving. They can touch their face. It's not going to go anywhere. Go ahead and close for me. And with this one, I'm just going to gently brush it from the lash line all the way up into under the brow. I'm using a brush just because it gives me something to kind of blend across. You can use a ring finger if you'd like. Just make sure you're not using a lot of pressure when you're going through to blending this on their eye. Nope, I'm just kidding. All right, so then I have two brushes. I'm gonna be using a blending brush and then a packing style brush just to kind of go through and apply some color. So I like to start with the lightest shade possible, so I'm going through in with that nylon right there with the blending brush. And I'm just gonna dust this right underneath that brow bone. This is gonna help lift up their eye and create a really beautiful highlight while they're performing. I'm gonna switch gears and I'm gonna use something that's a little bit more flat this time around, more of a packing style brush that's gonna really push color in, give it some place to stay and stick, so then that way I don't have to worry about it being too thin or not opaque enough. So going through and just kind of pressing across the eyelid. And I really like to do the eyes first. One of the reasons why I like to do the eyes first is especially with formulas like this, there tend to be a little bit more fallout or tend to have a little bit of product that tends to fall down. This way, especially if your kid has sensitive skin, you don't have to like put foundation on, then wipe that area off and put more foundation on and irritate their skin. It's one less step for them. They tend to appreciate it a little bit more as well. So just going through and pushing this in on the lid. Another reason why I like that primer is because it really gives something for these colors to stick to, so I don't have to worry about them going anywhere or getting funky looking or anything like that. And then I'm gonna go back to that blending style brush to go through in with our deepest shade. And we're gonna start in the outer V. So basically where the lash line and the eye socket, and you can find your child's eye socket by just gently touching their eye. You can feel where that bone goes in. That will be their socket. So that's where you want to trace for that crease area. So we're going through and just kind of tapping to build up a little bit of that color. And then going through to go in the crease just to add some depth and some darkness. And blending it right into the bronze shade. Going through and packing a little bit more of the tempting right onto that lid, so in that way there's an easy blend that you don't really even have to work for. And then you can go through that same packing style brush with that darkest shade one more time in that outer corner just to give it a little bit more oomph. You don't have to go into the crease. You don't have to go far in at all. You just want to go through and pack that color in so it's really saturated and sticks. As you can see, there's a little bit of fallout. I like to go through with just a clean powder brush, and I will actually just brush it all away. It makes it way easier, and your child typically appreciates it when you don't grab their face and blow on them really hard to try to get it to move everywhere. Like I said, another reason, again, why too we did the eyes before the skin is just because we have the ability to wipe that off without smearing it into the foundation or into anything like that to make it kind of like a weird muddy color. This way their skin will stay nice and bright. Next, I'm going to go in with mascara.
Do eyeliner?
Oh, what did we do? Oh, forgot, round two. We're gonna do some eyeliner and then some mascara.
I know the drill.
There you go. I mean, you've been through round one already, huh?
I said she's got a lot of friends. She's been at a lot of weddings.
I was like,
can
we
I
also
say?
did the before once, so.
I think pride.
So we're gonna go through and use a pencil. The tip for this, I'm gonna say, is to aim for your child's eyelashes because you are not gonna actually draw on their eyelashes. You will be drawing on the skin between their lashes, making it way easier for you. I'm also gonna recommend that you, when you go to apply the eyeliner, use the side of the brush or the side of the pencil versus the tip of the pencil because the pencil tends to have a triangular shape, so as you use it, it gets fatter and fatter. So one side might be nice and thin, and then you go to the other side and you haven't sharpened it, and all of a sudden it's a big, thick mess. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have you look straight down. This is the perfect time to give them something to like focus on, a book, an iPad, or something like that, just so they look down. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna press the pencil against those lashes, and we're just gonna do short little strokes. And what this does is, like I said, it's gonna fill in between each eyelash and giving a little bit of shape and depth without being too over the top. If your kid has an issue with getting like the corners, you can have them say, hey, look over here, and have them look at your shoes or over at the dog sitting over here, because in that way you're able to get in that inner corner a little easier. So go ahead and open. So you have that nice crisp line across the top of the eye. Go ahead and look down one more time. Perfect, open for me. And this can be repeated on both sides. And like I said, once you aim for the lashes, you're gonna miss them and you're gonna get in between on that skin. All right, mascara time. Go ahead and look down for me. This will be one of the best tips, is to ask them to look down, so then that way you can comb in between. So on a pause. And you can start in the bottom of the eyelash and then almost kind of just comb upward. The reason why I want to do mascara next is because we want to give the lashes like almost like a shelf-like quality. So when it comes to gluing on fake eyelashes, it's way easier for you. So we're just gonna go through and kind of comb through. And if you have them look down, it's super easy, because in that way you can actually like pick up their lid and go through and get in between, and that way you kind of can control them a little bit more. Go ahead and open for me. Just have a nice coat of mascara on the eyelashes. So one thing I'm gonna say about fake eyelashes is that a lot of the time they're designed for adult shaped eyes, meaning that they might be too long for your child. So a couple days in advance, a week in advance, I'd recommend to go through and measure them for them. So what you would do with that is you would take the eyelash out of the container, go ahead and just look down, do not close. That's a very big tip, because once they close, their skin on their eyelid tightens up and almost becomes wrinkly. So when you go through to try to measure or adhere them, you're not getting a true measurement. So when they open up their eye, sometimes it can be way too short, or it can actually jump off of the eye. So go ahead and just look down. What we're looking for, go ahead and just open, is to making sure that nothing is hanging off that tail. You don't want anything too long. Just like the inner corner, you don't want it to be poking them in the corner of their eye. So for her, this is the perfect shape for her, so we don't have to trim anything. Go ahead and look down. So now if you needed to trim anything, you always want to trim from the outer corner in. So when it comes to false lashes, there's usually a shorter corner and a longer corner. You always want to start in the longest corner, the outside of the eye, and trim inward versus the inner corner in. Because what will happen is that these will be super long and they'll almost jet out of the eye. Also, when it comes to adhesives, they have different kinds of adhesives on the market. We have like I Love Duo, we sell it at MAC, it's at Walgreens, it's at Walmart, Target, wherever. There's also different kinds of it. So we have a black, which is a non-latex based adhesive, and then we have the clear, which is a latex base. So with that being said, it's depending on if your child is sensitive to latex or really sensitive in general. I recommend doing a non-latex based, just because you're not gonna have to worry about irritating their eyes at all.
Was there any difference in the
There
level
is.
of adhesion?
Not really adhesion. This tends to be a little easier to remove because it dries down, where this will stay a little bit more sticky.
Okay.
It's more so about the applicator. So with this one, is some of the styles will come with a brush applicator, which are my personal favorite because you can just paint right on that band, where others are going to come with like a tube, where you do not want to use that on the band because you will get adhesive everywhere.
Yeah.
What I recommend instead is then to take a little bit out of there, and then using like the broken end of a Q-tip will really help, because then you can actually paint it on that way and have more control over it. All right, so for her, I'm just going to be using the black adhesive just because it's non-latex based. I have the ability to brush it on. It stays more sticky. So the tip for this one is you want to apply the adhesive, and you want to give it at least 30 seconds to a minute minimum for it to get kind of tacky, because what's going to happen otherwise, if you put it on while it's too wet, it's going to barely stick to your child's eye. It's going to move around, and then it's going to dry in a funky place. So if you give it some time to dry down, it's going to become sticky. So when you put it down, it stays where you put it, and you have control over the eyelash. So we're going to give this some time to kind of set up and dry. And when it comes to doing eyelash application, sometimes it can be really helpful for your child, depending on their eye shape, is having them lift their head back. So what that does is it gives you the ability to kind of come down from the top without having to tuck yourself in and try to get through around their eye socket. So when their chin is back, you have more of a flat surface to then touch down on. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to touch down in the center of their eye, and you don't want to adhere the corners first, you want to stick the center first. So then that way, if you need to adjust or pull in either direction, you can do that without compromising the adhesive on the corners, which is the most valuable part, because those tend to be the areas that lift first, and it can also be the areas that tend to drive your kids nuts faster. So now this is there, and we don't have to really adjust anything. And we're just going to go through and stick it up. And kind of press. Go ahead and open. How's that feel? Good. They'll be able to tell you if there's something poking them. Heaviness and tightness are totally normal feelings when it comes to fake eyelashes. Things that are stabbing, burning, poking, throbbing, go ahead and look down, are not normal. So if your kid feels any of those, it could be a mixture of like a natural eyelash that flipped around to maybe be incorrectly placed, and you can kind of go through and adjust and troubleshoot that way. This side has had plenty of time to dry, so I'm going to go through and give you a tip, especially if your kid has super like thick, full, plush eyelashes. You're going to want to go through and pinch them together. So what that entails is having them just kind of like look down just like that, going through with a finger horizontally, and going through and almost pressing either the tip of your thumb, or if you have a fingernail, going through and pressing them together, because what this will do is it will bond that mascara that you have on the lashes originally with the false eyelashes. So they're going to make them feel more balanced, more blended. They're going to be stuck together. It's going to be way more comfortable for them. It's something that you can even use yourself if you need to. You just want to make sure that those eyelashes are really dry before you go through and try to pinch them. Otherwise, you might pull them off and undo all of that hard work that you've just done. So those would be like some really great tips for when it comes to doing like eye application. Obviously when it comes to skin is what I would like to do next. For skin, it just depends on whatever the needs of your child are, making sure that you have great coverage, definitely going like a shade darker than what they would normally be color matched at, just because